we know immigrants mostly as economic migrants, people who come for a better life. A refugee is different in that they are fleeing for their very lives. They are leaving places like these children are leaving Honduras, El Salvador, places that have the highest homicide rates in the world. Only in Syria do more people die every day than in Honduras. And so a refugee is someone who is fleeing to save their life, and they don't have a government that can protect them. And basically in places like Honduras, you have governments that are teetering on being failed states. And so I see a lot of these children as different from previous migrations of children that have come, including the boy I wrote about, Enrique, who came 13 years ago, 14 years ago. These children, since the violence has ramped up so much in Central America in recent years, 40 to 60% of these children now are really refugees and should be treated differently from economic migrants, with more compassion, with more of a willingness to let them in to save their lives. In Enrique's neighborhood, really in the elementary schools, the gangs and the narco cartels are going in and forcing children as young as 6 years old to use marijuana, to use crack. They try to get them hooked on that and then use those children to serve as lookouts for them, to sell drugs on the street corners, and ultimately to serve as hitmen. In this elementary school, the narcos were basically in control. This 12-year-old who worked for them would show up with a gun and say, I'm going to take these 3 10-year-olds to distribute crack with me today. And when the teachers would object, he would put a gun to their head. But what's really ramped up that violence markedly is that the cocaine that's produced in Latin America and Colombia before was really coming up the Caribbean corridor, and we spent about $8 billion since 2000 to disrupt that flow. But what the narco cartels have done is simply rerouted that inland, and so now 8 and 10 of these flights carrying this cocaine are landing in Honduras. And so these narco cartels are really fighting for that turf to move this cocaine north. The United States is the largest consumer of illegal drugs in the world. Well, I think students at Ramapo College have become educated and reading Enrique's journey about what these children go through, the traumas that they've experienced in their home countries on this journey, and once they arrive here in the United States. And I hope that they will translate that knowledge into action in asking their congressional leaders to provide fair due process for these children and consider them refugees, and demand that they do get a court hearing before an immigration judge. The Congress and President Obama are thinking about taking that away from these children, and demand that we allow more of these children really to be treated as the refugees that they are. Prior to 9/11, we really allowed double the number of refugees to come into this country as now. Let's simply open the door a little wider for children who are fleeing for their lives and allow the number of refugees to go up to accommodate these children so that they're not sent back. I am afraid that what we're doing instead is we are trying to rush these kids through the court process as quickly as possible, their immigration court, not really provide due process, and we're pushing these governments to the south to interdict these children. Mexico is catching 10 times as many now as it was at the beginning of the year. So basically ship them back, whether they're going to be killed or not, being sent back to places like Honduras. And I think that's unconscionable, and I think Americans and students should stand up and say that that's not right. I think you can take that knowledge, the skills that you gain here and the knowledge that you gain in college to act to make this a better place, a better world, and I'm hoping that that's what the students at Ramapo will do on the immigration issue.